One really powerful thing I need to share with like whoever hears this, I think, is I had to kill my ego, weirdly. So to transition from marketing director of one of the top auto groups in the country, early on as that title, I could have been pretty gruff with vendors. I'd be like know-it-all guy, putting people in their place, whatever. It was not a real healthy skill, but it was because I was sort of intoxicated maybe with the power that I sat in.
Welcome to another episode of the You're in Charge podcast. I'm your host, Glenn Pasch, and each week we get together because this is the podcast that helps new and experienced managers build the skills necessary to lead high-performing teams. And today, I'm really excited to have my good friend, Matt Lasher. He is now the president of a new company called Streamline Automotive Solutions, and I thought bringing him on was really going to be helpful to the audience because I've known Matt for a long time, but now taking on a new challenge. I think a lot of people who are sitting out there listening are given new challenges, new companies, new divisions, and what is that like? How do you make the jump, and what are the changes you go through? And so I thought, Matt, you would be the perfect person to answer that and have that conversation with today. So thank you for joining us.
Glenn, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be on the show. And listen, before we get started, I just want to thank you for your contributions to the industry. I think, we've been industry friends and acquaintances for a long time now. And I just admire you're always studying the industry. You're always pushing. You're always trying to help us make, better decisions, get smarter, use data better, and all those things. So I just really appreciate your contributions and, happy to connect today.
Thank you so much. That means a lot coming from you. So I do appreciate that. So before we jump into that topic, give the people who may not know who you are. And again, this podcast goes out to people who are in automotive, not automotive. So the discussion we're going to have today really is, helpful to anybody in any industry about leading teams. But for those, talk a little bit about who you are, what your journey's been, and tell us a lot about Streamline Auto Solutions.
Yeah, sure. Well, the quick little elevator pitch, I guess, starting with this phrase that I use everywhere that I can, people over everything. And that really guides me through all of my decisions in life, professionally, personally, and all of that. But, I'm an auto guy. I've been in the automotive industry for, graduated from college in 2003. So 22 years now, I guess. I spent 5 years at Nissan out of college doing some consumer affairs stuff. I did some sales and marketing things for Infinity in the West region. After that, I was selling T-shirts out of the trunk of my car and playing online poker for 2 years to pay my bills. Shout out to Shopify 2006. My big miss in that journey, though, is I should have kept posting YouTube videos, and who knows, I could have been Mr. Beast or something. But fast forward to my journey at Herr. So after the poker thing, I started selling cars at the Herr Automotive Group. It's based in Buffalo, New York, my hometown. It's gone through a remarkable growth since I started there in 2009. It's now 40 stores and over 3,000 employees. And the group sells about 60,000 cars or more than that now, and a little over 500,000 repair orders a year. So a really, really big enterprise in Western New York. And it's been a remarkable journey, sales, management, sales teams, F&I, and I built the marketing and advertising team there over 15 years. And then in the last year, as of, I guess, January, I took off my marketing director hat and I'm now running Streamline, which was really incubated at Herr over a 5 or 6 year period. And what it aims to do is really just a vehicle selection and budget calculator for dealers, help guide dealers through the process of finding cars that customers can afford. And we're also helping lender partners dynamically connect their underwriting guidelines to the dealership through lenses that the dealership knows how to take advantage of. So if you've ever used Capital One Dealer Navigator or some of the other portals that exist for lenders, that's really what Streamline has built.
Okay. So there's so many places I could go with this. So let's go backwards to go forward, because one, it's really admirable that you stayed in one organization. There's a lot of people that automotive is known for an industry that jumps, but obviously you have a growth pattern where you went, as you said, from sales and you moved up and you went into different departments. But what I really want to talk about as a starting point is, because you just casually tossed this aside of like, I built the marketing department over 15 years. And, in tandem with this incredible growth of organization, size of organization. So talk a little bit about that. So someone who's
Yeah.
out there listening, they might be challenged. We had this at our CXO conference not too long ago where they were talking about, should I build an internal marketing team and what are the challenges of doing that, pros and cons of doing that. So walk me a little bit through that journey of building something internal to help that organization.
Yeah, listen, I mean, well, first off, my days on the showroom floor really helped me create the marketing team. Okay. So selling cars and being a sales manager and being a used car manager and doing F&I during Cash for Clunkers.
Right.
Um, those experiences, I think, gave me the empathy and the appreciation for what salespeople and managers at the stores go through. Okay. So I've seen examples of marketing people that can be a little bit elitist, let's say, where you sort of ivory tower, you get flown in from fancy school or you got your MBA or whatever, but you've never gotten sort of like punched in the face by a customer trying to sell a car. You've never like brushed off a car in the middle of the winter in Buffalo, New York. You've never lost a pair of keys before delivery and tried to figure out how to make it right or
Right.
whatever.
Right.
Like you've never gone through some of these things that our teammates at the stores face every single day. So I think like I used my perspective and history selling cars and working through those challenges at the store to really help grow and shape where we headed on the marketing side. I viewed the marketing team at Herr. First off, there was not one before me. There was disparate teams. We had an e-business director who kind of built a CRM and managed some digital stuff, a website and other things, very talented guy. We had a separate sort of variable manager that led some newspaper advertising and things like that. We didn't have the same logo across the group. We didn't have there was all sorts of variants, right? So for like a year, all my job was, I was like this Tasmanian devil trying to circle around the group, trying to find brand inconsistencies, trying to find,
Right.
ways that we could just get in alignment. Okay. It took me like a year by myself, just doing like literally nothing other than, well, why do we use this color logo over here? And why is like this over here? And, we didn't have brand guidelines. We didn't have any sort of standardized anything because we had a lot of different approaches. Now we are a very dense group in Buffalo, New York. So the brand mattered, the consistency mattered.
Sure.
I mean, if you're, 2 stores in one state and 5 stores in another or whatever, you could probably get away with some inconsistencies. But, I felt like it just really mattered. And I had just moved from San Francisco and I was like influenced by Apple and like, Yelp and, Craigslist, even to some, like there was a lot of things that like, I felt like Buffalo was like 10 years behind the tech curve in San Francisco. So I tried to sort of bring that thinking into Western New York. But Glenn, I learned so much in the last 10 years. I mean, broadly, I think marketing as a discipline is somewhat undervalued and underappreciated, underfunded and underrespected. So you see that, I think in the C-suite, the CMO position, I think is one of the highest turnover roles within a company in the C-suite. And that's primarily because you have to just align to the CEO. The CEO, I think, has to trust you,
Right.
has to sort of think like you, because there's a lot of decisions in marketing that are part art or part science. I'm definitely an art guy. I love like the consumer psychology side. I love, some of the variance in trying to with data analysis and stuff that's not perfectly solvable because, marketing and advertising is a difficult discipline. And so I think often because it's so difficult and because we can't tie ourselves immediately to, a statement line, on the financial statement, if you do a really great job as a marketer and you help a store increase its used car sales 50%, well, who gets the pat on the back? Well, typically it's the used car department, maybe the F&I department, if they did a good job selling warranties, and the general manager, right? Like, but what about the service department that did a great job reconning cars and getting their trade-ins through and getting them turned onto the lot, right? Like it's a team sport, right? So if I've learned anything at Herr, it's a team sport and every person plays a part of that. And so I think what I had to learn and grow into, Glenn, to build a marketing team. So the Herr's marketing team is 10 people strong, led by Brad Gelber and Mary Wright now. But they worked very closely for me. Mary worked with me directly for 3 years and Brad like 8. Okay. So Brad like is in sync with me and how I think, and like, they're doing a great job running the team, but it's now 10 people strong, which I would argue is still probably slightly understaffed for the size of the group. 40 stores, just to have like reasonable reps with each store or each brand. I think there's 22 maybe nameplates within the group. There's a lot, right? Brand compliance, co-op compliance, just all of the stuff that comes into the day-to-day and the monthly cycle that represents an automotive. The rinse and repeat, start back at zero.
Yes.
There's some bad habits that are created because of this short-term focus, and there's tons of pressure on the stores for results, right? So you create some bad habits in marketing, like a reliance on like direct mail. So if a general manager has a bad month and they're getting some pressure from their managers, what do they typically do? Well, they're going to go sign up for like a $10,000, $15,000 direct mail piece that will bring in some measurable leads that they can tie to sales so that they can say they did something, right? And so we see a lot of these short-term behaviors, but I think the best marketing is long-term thinking, right? One of the reasons why West Herr has been successful is because Scott Buehler, president and CEO, has the longest term view of anybody I've ever met. He will allow a customer or an employee in some ways to sort of take advantage of him in the short term, because he knows if he waits you out long enough, you will send a referral, you will send your cousin to the service, you'll get a trade-in, whatever, like all the things that comprise automotive retail. So I think marketers are challenged to think really long-term, also to defend the point of view of the customer. So we can drink our own Kool-Aid in auto. And now that I've sort of stepped back from the marketing director role, I can tell you how interesting it's been shopping for cars without the attachment to the industry, like how poor the websites are. No disrespect to our hardworking, dealer website vendors and stuff. It's not as intuitive as we think. When we're all in and we're like the salesperson and we know the models to consider and all of this stuff, like, great. We can be very, very helpful as people and guides in the vehicle selection process. However, Grandma Sue sitting at home does not want to be a sales manager. She doesn't want to desk her own deal. She would like some guidance in terms of what options she should consider, especially considering some of the more challenging topics like EV and range anxiety and some of these things. Like, what are my even options now? So I think it's really, our industry is driven by people, hardworking people that add a lot of value. Okay. And so building the marketing team, I guess, just to close that loop, I had to learn how to advocate for the skills of that team. So there's different skills. You have a graphic designer, you have a social media content person, you have a project manager, you have data analytics people, you have website people, you have vendor management people, you have co-op sort of accounting type skill people. You have a lot of different skills that aren't sometimes just get all rolled into one. What I've seen a lot of dealerships have is like, one person, and they're sort of like the order taker for the whole group or whatever. And, they're more like a project manager than anything typically, but they don't have all these other skills, and they shouldn't really even be expected to. The analogy I've used as it relates to the service department is you wouldn't just have one person in service. You wouldn't just have the service advisor taking the order, fixing the car, pulling the parts, putting it back together, detailing the car, and giving it back to the customer. You would obviously be like, well, that's too much. But for some reason in marketing, we don't think about the different disciplines as earned skills and practiced skills, and we marginalize a lot of that. So I think that becomes, a challenge for people to advocate for their teams, advocate for resources. Car dealerships are big, big businesses that, in my view, warrant, just like they have a legal team maybe, or an HR team or whatever, we should have quality marketing teams. And that's going to require investment. Glenn Pasch is not cheap. You want to hire Glenn at the dealership, you're going to have to pay up. You know what I'm saying? So we got to invest in the people, we got to invest in the teams, and also encourage growth. We launched an internship program 4 or 5 years ago now that's been very, very successful in identifying young college recruits that are very eager and interested in the car business. Some go on into sales, some go into service, some go into administrative. However, we've found some really, really awesome people to bring into the marketing team. Right. And so there's been this confluence of like, okay, we're going to invest in the people. We're going to find some young people that can grow and train, but you got to invest in them. You can't just expect them to know everything, right? Like you got to give them space. And the marketing side, there's like a creative component to that, which is very hard for like sales executives to sort of wrap their arms around, I think. Because we're so results oriented, measure what you expect, or what are those phrases? Right. You want to be so disciplined to the, science of it. but that doesn't give our creative folks space to breathe and come up with good ideas. Right. But we were lucky at West Her. We did have some space. We had a little bubble cocoon around us to be creative. One of the creative ideas we came up with was Team West Her. So Josh Allen, quarterback for the Buffalo Bills, is one of our spokesmen. And we have a couple other Buffalo Bills athletes, Deion Dawkins and Dawson Knox. But this Team West Her concept grew from that, which was really inspired in 2017 by Instagram. We needed somebody of interest to
Right.
capture people's attention, right? But we started investing in them. What do they care about? What causes do they care about? What charities do they care about? We started building that momentum, which then turned into Team West Her as a concept represents all of the employees at West Her, right? And then it represented all the customers at West Her. So it sort of ballooned, but that Team West Her concept did not come out of a sales executive's like order. It came out of a brainstorming session with our marketing folks of, hey, how should we engage on Instagram? At the time, Stories was brand new and people's attention was, fleeting. And it was just a pure play but it also took probably 3 years of execution before people even understood what we were doing.
And I think
that's, I think play this long game.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point, because a few things that you said stuck out to me. One was the fact that doing the job, as you said, dealing with customers influenced your marketing because you knew what the problems were, or the questions they asked, or the struggles. And, also you were part of delivering a great experience, and then you could talk about it in your marketing. The other piece is, and I think this is really, I see it all the time, is I don't know if it's lack of understanding of the importance of marketing, or as you said, it may not be as respected because it's very transactional. I pay, I want leads. I pay, I want leads, versus this idea of it's going to take time. And I use the example, I was talking to my son. I use his friend group as a, petri dish of ideas. And, they're 20. And I said, where would you go get a car? Like if you needed a car. And someone said, well, first I got to figure out what I want, then I'll go local, but definitely look at Carvana. And it just stuck at me. And I said, why? And they said, because I see their ads everywhere. And I was like, okay. And then we got talking about it. I said, well, do you want to buy a car online? They said, no, I want to test drive it. But then we got talking. He said, but I also don't want to sit in a dealership for 4 hours. I don't understand why. Like the concept is that. But what clicked for me in that is your point is you're talking about that long-term play. I don't think people are investing enough in your brand long-term. Like you said, it took 3 years to stand out. We're trying to do it in a month or two. And then you're wondering why people don't know who we are because, well, that didn't bring us leads. So what are your thoughts on that? Because again, you lived it. Someone sitting out there now goes, I'm a solo person, or maybe there's two of us. How do I battle long-term versus short-term to keep everyone happy?
Well, I think, what you can control is what you can control. So at the store level, the experience of just selling a car, let's get that right. Right. It doesn't matter what you do on the marketing side, what promises that you make, or how your ads look, or any of that. None of that matters until the execution is really good. And so one of the things I was proud of that I instituted at West Her was a net promoter score survey called Delighted. I think they actually just sunset Delighted recently, but on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being the best, how likely are you to recommend the West Her Auto Group to a friend? Anybody that had a transaction with us in sales and service got that email, right? Mm-hmm. Now, we put a process in place for anybody that gave us a score less than 8 to reach out to that person, the customer, figure out what happened, right? And if needed, make corrective action and try to make people better than even, right? The whole idea for that was not to get an OEM score, OEM survey. It was not to coach a survey. It was to capture negative word of mouth. Right. It was to make our teams better with how do we execute better. Now, we've done that for over a decade now, I think, at West Her. I have seen it evolve even in our own management tendencies. We tend to get a little more granular now with the data. When I sort of launched it, I was more artful about it. Right. It wasn't the exact score. It was about reading between the lines, right? But as managers come and managers want to show progress and improvement in things, and there's some challenge there. So it's no doubt a challenge. The person that's in the best position to think long-term is the owner.
Right.
The owner of the dealership. And oftentimes you have maybe a passive owner, somebody that's not engaged, but maybe you have a equity general manager or something. That person should also be thinking long term. They may or may not, right? So they may,
Right.
depending on their spending habits, depending on their personality, depending on market tides, a lot of things can change, right? And I think it's hard to think long term when times are good. Whatever, everybody's making money. When times get tough, the desperation comes in, but we have all these excuses built into our industry not to think long term.
Right.
Turnover of staff and new car incentives and new car availability and prices of used cars at the auction or just whatever, right? Like we come up with all sorts of reasons why we should or shouldn't be spending in advertising, or we shouldn't care about this or that. But I think detaching some of the media strategy from the frontline store, if you're an owner or a general manager, I think you would align to have an agency partner, or if you don't have a marketing team, or if you have like a media team within, give them some budget relative to your total store size that's evergreen branding all the time. So
Yep.
it might just be some, branding ads on social. Maybe it's $3,000 a month that you're just always going to do. It's not a sales message. It's just, hey, we care about, Poughkeepsie, New York, and we're donating to these causes, and whatever, it doesn't matter. Like, but dealers, I think, have this tremendous advantage to humanize themselves, be these local based operators that care about the community. And I think that matters still. I know loyalty is fleeting, and I know, the Carvanas and the Instacarts and the delivery of everything and the instant of everything is putting pressure on loyalty. But I'll tell you what, like, experiences still really matter. And word of mouth is probably the most powerful form of advertising that you can't manufacture. You got to earn it. Right. And so that's where we started was just focus on what you can control, execute at a really high level every day, and then just take these little steps. You don't go from selling 25 used cars a month to 200 overnight.
No, not at all.
It takes incremental steps. You got to add inventory, you got to add people, you got to add process. And to get to 200 is a journey. Same thing with marketing. You got to start at a place wherever you are that's sort of self-aware,
Yeah.
and then give yourself patience and grace to sort of grow over time and be committed to this long-term message. What are we about? Who do we care about? Gary Vaynerchuk and many other like social media people right now have been talking about the power of brand. Maybe the only thing that will matter in an AI-driven future is sort of brand consideration, right?
Right.
If all the leads are perfectly efficiently optimized, okay, what's your differentiator to the competitor? If your competitor uses the same follow-up process that you use because you're both using Stella or whatever, like, okay, well, how do you differentiate yourself? Like, is it now just going to because I'm going to bring my car to you 200 miles away, or the economics start to fail, right? So I think that there's a lot of things to think about, but long-term branding is a thing that matters. But I would also be not too arrogant about your brand. So Herr had the luxury of having 40 stores, all these employees, 20 brands, this density that doesn't exist in most places. I've seen some smaller groups in other parts of the country that really believe like, oh, we're so great, or, and maybe they are really great, but they're not making the impressions that they need to really have like top of mind awareness for a lot of people. Different story, but I worked at Infiniti for Nissan in Los Angeles. Okay. Right. In Los Angeles by themselves, Infiniti at the time, 2005 or 6, was spending like $10 million a year in just Los Angeles. And I would go to advertise, billboards, TV, radio, full spectrum stuff. I would go to the golf course and people would be like, hey, what do you do for a living, Matt? And I would say, oh, I work for Infiniti. And they would be like, oh, what, the speaker company?
Right.
The pool company? What does that mean? What does it mean? So that was a good lesson for me. That's like, wow, this stuff takes time. It takes a long time. Right. And you got to believe that over time, if you are an operator that wants to grow and you want to have a lot of different brands, the reason Herr is as big as it is Scott Bieler was determined to be able to offer multiple cars to the same household. And he knew that they weren't all going to be Fords.
Right. Exactly.
Where we started. Right. And so that was his motivation to grow. Then it turned into, we also want our people to have career paths and ways to grow and, improve their own lives. Okay, well, more stores give more opportunities for general managers and finance managers and sales managers and used car managers. So it's this momentum that has to build over time. So if you really, really want to grow, long-term branding and quality of people are probably the two things that you just never are going to lose sight of. You're never, you can't relent. And there will be temptations. There will be temptations to cut back on advertising. There'll be temptations to go dark because you won't feel it in the short term.
No. And I think that's really important. And I really want everyone who's listening, because I couldn't agree with you more. And I think so many people and I think it goes back, and it's, I never want to be someone who sits here and goes, oh, well, it's easy that I would do this, because you have a lot of pressure from the manufacturers, that 30-day cycle. My wife always says that. She was in sales for BBC and A&E, and she said, I could never work on a 30-day cycle. Like, her brain just didn't understand, because it takes long-term for them to do what they need to do. But I think it's important, that balance of first controlling what you can control, investing in long-term, having that vision, but there has to be a part of your budget that always goes. So let me just pivot now for a tactical thing. Going from you to 10 people, you've said that there have been 2 people who are running the team now. One was with you for 8, one was with 3. What were some of the things that now you, and I want to get into the new company in a moment, but you moving into that organization with other people, you're a more mature manager. You have some, skills now that maybe you didn't have in terms of leading a team when you first had to bring on your first 1 or 2 people and said, oh, what do I do with these folks? So give the audience a couple examples of things you look back on that you go, yeah, I learned from it, but I wouldn't do that again. Because I'm sure some of these people now, you're trying to pour into them as managers, and you're looking at it going, here are things I did well, but here are some things that were brutal. Give the audience a couple examples of that.
Well, one, starting at the store. So I was a young, ambitious sales manager, 28 years old, and really trying to grow and grind and, impress the bosses and stuff. And I had a salesperson pull me aside one day, and he said, hey, Matt, he's like, how come? He's like, I feel like everybody you're talking to, you see them as a number. Right. And it really stuck with me. I was like, oh, what do you mean? He's like, you're just always so like, that like a checklist. And it's like, we're just numbers to you. And he wasn't wrong. So I think like the early version of me was a 1 + 1 = 2 guy. Right. And now that I got a little more gray hair, I got 4 kids now, by the way, too. And so like life happens, the journey of life, some of the pains that come with life, some of the challenges that come with life make you a better person to connect to, people. Being a parent changes you fundamentally. When I was 28, I had no kids, and I judged people that were 5 minutes late to this morning sales meeting. In my mind, I'm judging them. I might not have berated them or whatever, but I was judging them. I didn't understand. How could you be late? You should be late. You should be on time. I got 4. I'm late to everything now, Glenn. I'm 30 minutes late to everything. Like literally everything. So I have a different perspective of this. I've also watched Scott, who's been a mentor of mine. Over the years, he's really developed a caring for people and a curiosity for people that creates space for him to just banter or have a joke or this or that. And I think human connection really matters, right? And so I think the team, you got to believe, if you're the leader, you need actually to probably press uncomfortably into your team's lives. You need to know, because we bring our whole selves to work, whether we want to acknowledge it or not.
Yep.
So if somebody's going through a divorce, they're probably not operating at 100%. If somebody's got a illness, cancer with themselves or a loved one, that's dramatically disruptive to their life. They just had a baby, big news, like big transformation. Trying to figure out how to buying a house, all these things that happen with you as in your adult journey. I think we as leaders need to understand and care about what's going on with people broadly before we can do any of the other stuff. So I think that would be a huge lesson I learned early on that sticks with me today.
Well, what I like about that also, just before you move on to your next point, is you have 4 children, and I'm sure there's structures of how the Lasher family runs, so to speak, but those 4 kids are different. Those 4, they're 4, right? And I think that I think is important because you talked about it, and I want people to realize that if you have children, you don't treat each of your children exactly the same way. So to your point is, prior to having them, you tried to treat everyone the same way. They were the numbers, they were the
Yep.
checklist. You're this, you need this, and it was the quality was, did you perform your checklist? And now being a family person, seeing all of that, I think that's really something that of something that of importance to bring to the table as a leader is looking at each of these people and saying, within my structure, I still have to pour into you because you need me to talk to you in the morning to get you going. This one, don't talk to them in the morning because that'll disrupt their, whatever it is, understanding. And I think your point of leaning in and understanding who your team members are just makes you a better leader.
Totally. It's difficult, especially as teams get bigger. It's
Mm,
difficult to stay as connected and plugged in. But if you have a team, sales team, 10, 15 people, if every day your mental checklist starts with your people and what's going on, because a salesperson selling 10 cars a month maybe doesn't like rock your performance numbers, but maybe they're really happy. Maybe they're a good teammate. Maybe they add excellent CSI. Maybe they help people that need help at the store,
right.
but they're just not driven to go do 20 or 25 or 30 units, right? They're never going to be. So you got to understand that, well, that's who they are, right? You don't have to be frustrated with them that they're not going from 10 to 15, right?
Right.
You got to just embrace and like, okay, awesome. You're like a great participant on the team, like steady Eddie, you're not burning through a lot of leads. Like you curate your customers well. Okay, you don't want to work 12 hours a day. I get it. Like you want
Right.
to go coach soccer or whatever. Like, okay, like everybody has different motivations in life. So I think, yes, we gotta be flexible in our assessment of people, I think. And that's definitely something that I'm getting better at. I'm not always there, I
Right.
can get impatient and, when the pressure, ratchets up, like you can get a little more intense. And sometimes that intensity, doesn't sit well with people that aren't used to it or aren't conditioned for it, and so I don't know, it's a balancing act. I think, it's probably every generation laments the younger generation coming up from behind them in terms of work ethic or what they care about or what they're focused on. But like think about our phones. Like we're on our phones a lot, right? Like the Gen X's or whatever, we're checking
Right.
email and X's and stuff. But like the alphas are on TikTok or something else that I don't
Yeah.
even know about yet. And there's this flexibility of how they consume media, to that we got to appreciate. So if they're sitting at their cubicle at their office doing this, you're like judging them. Hey, you're just on social media. Well, maybe they're like, shout out to Richardson. Russ Flips Whips. Guy
Right.
gets like hundreds of thousands of views on his TikTok channel. Like, I don't know, that's pretty effective, pretty cool
Sure.
stuff. Like, so I think ultimately there's different ways to do all of the activities. But as managers, we got to make sure we're staying within the guardrails and we're not, burning a lot of bridges and making people upset. But we need to be engaged, right, as managers. And that's engaged in their lives, also maybe engaged in their business during the day. During the day.
And
It's like,
yeah. And then coaching them up and being involved with them. Um, let's pivot a little bit now to the new. So you've made the jump now where you've taken off the hat as marketer, you've handed it off. Now we're with you focusing on Streamline Auto. So what was it like letting go? And have you truly let go of the marketing side? And then what's different now about this new division that may or may not have 10 people or completely
yeah,
different?
we
So
got 7 at the moment, but we're growing and we got outside developers and stuff. But so one really powerful thing I need to share with like whoever hears this, I think, is I had to kill my ego, weirdly. So to transition from marketing director of one of the top auto groups in the country, early on as that title, I could have been pretty gruff with vendors. I'd be like know-it-all guy, putting people in their place, whatever. That was not a real healthy skill, but it was because I was sort of intoxicated maybe with the power that I sat in.
right.
And people pander to that power because you're, big auto group and you want to
Mhm.
sell, a lot of,
Sure.
you see me as $1 million a year account and like, okay, you're going to be nice to me. And so what I learned though over time is like we're all people. We're all just like trying to make an impact and contribute and do good for our families and things like that. So, it was an interesting transition. because Streamline was born at Herr. We built it for ourselves. It was really just how do we find customers cars they can afford, but most importantly, get approved on. And we just started adding to it. So my partner, John Schultz, is the founder of it. He was the director of subprime financing at Herr. And I was a sales manager at the time when he started using it and started tinkering with it, whatever, right? And I was really interested in how it solved the affordability problems that customers have, the budget problems that people have, the tough credit challenge issues that people have, the negative equity things that we have to deal with at the stores. And so we just kept pressing on it and kept growing and growing and growing and growing. So we were wearing both hats. We were doing our day jobs, and we had this sort of side hustle that was supported by Herr. Herr knew what we were doing, but we were growing this thing over a 5-year period. We had outside developers, and we have just continued to grow. It went from a spreadsheet to a SaaS product that finance managers used, to a SaaS product that all managers used, to a SaaS product that salespeople used, to external dealers during COVID used, to now lender partners nationwide, right? And so the business just kept growing, and John and I had to make a choice. We could stay in our comfort land of the power of Herr and the, monopoly that we have in Western New York and getting paid well, and all is good, right? We don't need to expose ourselves to failure.
Right.
However, in absence of that, and that comfortable choice would have killed Streamline. So we made the choice. We're going to be all in on this thing and see what is possible. And I've taken this new, embracing sort of this idea of failure is not even a thing. It's something that we create in our mind, but it's like, you might fail in a strategy. You might fail in a conversation. You might fail in getting a sale, but there's something to learn from it. If you can step back and appreciate, well, what didn't go right? Or how could I have maybe did that differently? How could I have been a little more informed? How can we grow? But it's uncomfortable to grow. It's uncomfortable to go to the gym and keep yourself in shape. It's uncomfortable to order the salad when you want the French fries, but you have to sort of defer some of your gratification and some of your desires. You must defer to grow. Right. And so I think what we're doing with Streamline is we're building a team sort of artfully in our way to continue to grow and add value. And one of the things that motivates me so much in the Streamline journey is, broadly, car dealers, I'll say, don't care that much about the affordability challenge that exists for consumers. The bottom part of the pyramid is sort of the stereotype of difficult to finance, difficult deals to put together, or whatever. But they're human beings. And by the way, there's an opportunity for a win-win scenario. And so what I've sort of realized is that the altruistic reason why I care about Streamline, of helping people with budget problems and helping dealers make more car deals and helping lenders manage risk, what dealers really care about is selling cars and making money, right? Which is not
a bad thing. It's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing. So we got to sort of trick the system and enable car dealers to sell more cars easier and faster, hence the name Streamline, right? Make more money. And at the same time, help customers. It's a win-win. The dealer sells a car, the customer gets a better car, maybe a better financing terms. One of the blind spots we have in automotive retail is incorrect vehicle selection can lead to declines, can lead to unnecessary co-buyers, can lead to $2,499 plus $4,000 bank fee loans that are suboptimal for anybody, right? But if we take a proactive approach to this budget problem, and we know what our inventory looks like, and we know how the lenders think about our inventory, and we know what their lender programs are, we can actually create this awesome win-win-win dynamic where all three parties, customers, dealers, and lenders, benefit. And it's something that I'm really proud of, that we're going to continue to push on, and we're just excited about the the mission that we're on.
I love that. And what I also loved, excuse me, was that the way you look at failure, because you said it, but I want to again highlight it, is it's not I failed, it's just that didn't work. And I think that's when you say, oh, that didn't work, you don't put pressure on yourself. But with the word failure, like, oh my God, I failed, versus, well, that didn't work, let me try something else. That didn't work, let me try something. It keeps the momentum going. I think truly, I had one of my mentors said, the only real failure is when you stop trying. That's really it. He goes, then you failed on that and you just gave up. And maybe you made the decision to give up. It's not worth your time, but it's more about that. But I really love this idea. So is this, so for those in the automotive industry out here, so is this a product that's available to everyone now? Like any dealer can come and get this now?
So before I tell you those stats, because I'm proud of these stats that we just got to, but
okay.
I want to remind people that are on the entrepreneurial journey, it takes a long time. I've worked on Streamline myself for 5 years, and I've never taken a paycheck. 5 years. People see businesses get started, and they're like, oh, look at all that success or this overnight success or whatever.
Right.
A friend of mine, local entrepreneur in Buffalo, um, said you have to, when you pick your entrepreneurial journey, you have to let it consume you and
Right.
basically let it eat you alive.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not going to survive, right? You're not going to make it. You're
And
not
I
going to make it
think,
through
and
that
as you
challenge.
were saying, the I see this a lot too, is there's a lot of the younger generations, like, I'm going to be like, entrepreneurship is trendy, right? I still look back when I was young, if you ran your own business, it wasn't that people looked down at you, but, you know, well, you should have,
Yeah,
well, man, if you worked at AT&T, it would have been better.
that's
If you
right.
worked at Bell
Yeah.
Labs, though, that's the where you want to be. And entrepreneurship got this bad rap. And now all of a sudden everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. But to your point is, I don't think it's not easy. It's not easy
And you
when
shouldn't
you have to,
expect that success in 6 months or
oh
whatever, and all of a
no,
sudden you're doing 1 million a year. Like it just doesn't
it
really
doesn't work
happen.
that way. Doesn't work that way. And there might be some weird unicorn that
Yep.
something happens and it just
Yep.
flips a switch. But for the majority of everyone, it's either you take no paycheck or little bits that just
Yeah.
whatever you
Take
have
what
to
you
do.
need, take what you can need to survive or
And,
whatever.
and
Like,
then, like you said, it's that delayed gratification of saying that in 10 years, I can, in 20 years, I can. And for some people, that's a way going down the road because everybody's so wrapped up in, I need this now. But to your point, is entrepreneurship, it takes time, it takes patience. It's going to be frustrating. It's going to keep you up
but
in the
all the
middle of the
beauty
night.
is in that. All the beauty is in the
Oh yeah,
difficult of the
absolutely.
journey. And I think even as I get older here, I'm going to be sad when I get to that whatever self-described mountaintop that I'm aiming for, right? Like I'll be sad because like the journey, you're sort of getting to the end of that mountain.
Well,
Now there might be another mountain behind it, but
that's what Gary Vaynerchuk always jokes about when he loves the
behind the
Jets,
Jets, right?
and he goes, "Yeah, but the minute they win the Super Bowl, he goes, I'm done with them. I'm
Right.
not," because it's the journey of that. And I think if you are that person of what's my next challenge, you'll always find it. But you'll listen, I've known you for a long time. I think there'll always be that, like, that feels good. And then there's going to be what's next because you just
Yeah.
built something and you were able to walk away from it. So as we wrap up, before we get into my final questions, talk to me about how does, you said it's available to dealers. You had some
It is.
stats
Yeah,
you
yeah.
wanted to
So we're in
share.
6,100 dealers today, Glenn. And it's largely through our partnership with Truist and Regional Acceptance Corp. So we're currently powering the Regional Acceptance Lender Portal. It's called Make It Work, powered by Streamline. And so dealers that do business with Regional Acceptance already have access to Streamline, right? There's more features that we're building out to add value to dealers through this process in their showroom and so on. But they can get a little taste of what Streamline does already if they do business with Regional. We have some showroom specific features that I mentioned that we built just for ourselves at Herr that are available to dealers if they're interested. And we're integrating or integrated in Route One and Dealer Tracks coming at the later part of this year. So, a lot of we have, by the way, we have maybe 10 or 15 other lenders, some national, some regionalized, that are sort of in queue lined up to participate on the Streamline platform. And so we hope that we can continue to add value to the dealership, communicate the lender partners that they work with. We want to communicate their programs to the dealer, but we want to help a dealer sell more cars and make more money, namely sell more used cars, because I think that's the thing that we can control the most.
Right.
New car volume is going to come and go. Leases are going to be subvented and incentives will fluctuate or whatever. But building a healthy used car department is good for F&I. It's good for your team development. It's good for profitability. It's good for service. There's a lot of reasons why we should care about used cars more than we do. And so we're excited about building out some more features related to that to just help the dealer do that. So Streamline.auto is the website that people can check out, or just, hit me up on LinkedIn or whatever. And I'd be happy to connect to whomever.
Great. Yeah, we'll put all of that into the show. This has been fantastic. I could chat with you. I missed having these conversations with you. So at the end of every episode, I ask a few things here. Outside of your obsession with Streamline Autos, as an entrepreneur, what's one thing that you're reading, watching, doing that's inspiring you right now as a person?
Every morning I read one page out of the Daily Stoic. So this Stoic philosophy is one that I think really helps guide people through life and twists and turns. And I think, some people pick up the Bible, some people find meaning in other ways, but I think being grounded in some things and some thoughts that are broader than yourself and broader than maybe a digital sort of dopamine hit,
Right.
I think is really important. And being able to frame up good and bad in a way that what I really appreciate about that sort of stoicism is sort of this idea that it's all expected and it's all part of the grander plan here. And so there's nothing to get too bent out of shape about one way or the other.
Right.
And you can always sort of frame it around, okay, well, a bad thing, if you're going through a bad season in your life, a challenging season in your life, there's probably a good season coming on the other side.
Right.
If you're in a good season, well, it's not going to last forever. There's probably a challenging season ahead. So you continue to appreciate and be grateful for the season that you're in and gain your strength, gather your strength, because you will need it in another way, maybe in an unexpected way. So I love that. I'm a huge, I love business books. My wife makes fun of me because I only read business books. I don't read fiction books, but
right.
Big Seth Godin fan from a marketing perspective. I love permission marketing, Purple Cow. There's a book that's kind of relevant to this topic. I think the title that he wrote is You're in Charge Now What? Something like that. So it's, it's about this moment of stepping into your leadership.
Yes.
Maybe don't rush your process, be self-aware, be committed to your vision, and I think that's a scary thing to go through, but you do have to be of sound foundation to go on this journey, yes. Right? Entrepreneurship, Glenn, is not an easy faint of heart thing.
No.
You need to be pretty stable, I think, to deal with the adversities that come, whether there's financial pressures or societal pressures, right. Judgment from others, sacrifices you might need to make from skipping the soccer game or the anniversary dinner because you're traveling to Florida or whatever today, all these things that happen. So, I just think getting really grounded in yourself is a really important takeaway for anybody that's looking to grow, but be very, very comfortable with the uncomfortable, be very comfortable making mistakes, be very just open to, hey, I don't know this. As a brand new salesperson, Scott Beeler told me, hey, embrace the fact that you're new. Tell every single customer for the first 6 months that, hey, I'm brand new. I might not know the answer, but I promise you I will get the answer, right? Embrace that. That's an advantage, right? To be a brand new salesperson. I think similarly as an entrepreneur, there's things that I don't know that much about. We've never raised money. Okay, as a startup, we're cash flow positive. We've never raised money bootstrapped. However, we may need to raise money.
Right.
So this is an area that I need to learn in, but I also need to be humble about. And so I'm talking to advisors and I'm learning every single day. I don't know, I'm learning, but I want to be open to learning and I want to be okay with making mistakes and being, humble in our pursuit. So I think ultimately, everybody's got to find their own way. I don't think everybody should be an entrepreneur, by the way. I think many people are great to be the number 2, number 10 person in the Rolodex, whatever. They just want stability. They want comfort. They want to be part of a team. They want direction. They want to know where to go. But for those that like the challenge, I think Elon Musk said once, it's like chewing glass. If you like the challenge of forging into the unknown and, trying to make something out of nothing, I think it's a great, fulfilling path.
Great. Well, I really appreciate this. Really had a great conversation. There's so much that everyone can get out of this episode. So I appreciate your time, and we'll hook up all of your information, how to contact you and the Streamline website as well in the show notes. I'll just read everyone out. So audience, you know the drill here at the end. Please make sure that you, if you're watching on YouTube, to make sure you subscribe and hit the notification button. Every week we do push out episodes. If you're listening on a podcast platform, just review it. But more importantly, share this out. I think this has been such a great episode. What Matt shared with you guys today, I think there's just so much. I listened to this a couple times. Share it out. There's someone in your network who could benefit from this. And more importantly, we both appreciate the fact that there's so many places you could watch content, consume content. The fact that you spent some time with us today means the world to us. As I say at the end of every episode, leadership is not a title. It's what you do every single day. And what Matt shared with you, it's being open to learning. It's leaning into your people. It's being committed in a consistent manner. And more importantly, it's the long term. Part of what it is the step today, but it's that direction of where you're going and the faith that you're going to get there at the end. So we look forward to seeing you guys next week with another episode. Matt, congratulations on all your success. I'm really so happy for you couldn't have happened to a nicer person. And I just wish you all the best.
Glenn, thanks so much. I had a blast. And hopefully next time we chat, I'll have a studio as cool as yours.
There we go.
We'll see.
All right. Thanks very much.
Take care.